A quick and exciting announcement before I begin this video. For all of my fans and subscribers that live on the lovely island of Guam, I'm going to be at a free convention this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. called HeroCon at the Aganias Shopping Center. There's going to be a lot of fun events like a quick draw contest, a cosplay competition, and a trivia game hosted by yours truly. You're not going to want to miss it out. It's going to be a whole lot of fun, and I would love to meet all of my fans and subscribers who live on this beautiful island just like me. But with all that said, let's get to the video. One batch. Two batch. Penny and dime. Hey guys, the Black Critic Guy here today to review the new Marvel Netflix series, The Punisher. Now, The Punisher follows ex-Marine Frank Castle, aka He Who Punishes, who tries to live a normal life after killing everyone responsible for his family's murder. But after being discovered by a hacker named Micro, he informs Frank that the people responsible for his family's death go much further than mere hitmen. And with this newfound purpose, Frank teams up with Micro to find the men responsible for killing his family and doing what he does best, punishing some fools. Now, after everyone saw Daredevil Season 2, many of us, myself included, were crying out for a standalone Punisher series. He was arguably the best character in Season 2 and definitely worthy of his own show. And Netflix finally heard our pleas and didn't make us wait that long, because a year after the release of Season 2, we finally got our very own Punisher standalone series. And what do I think about it? Well, let's get into it. I guess the first thing I'll touch upon, since this is a Punisher series, is the action. It's quite exhilarating to watch. Now, it's not as well choreographed or visually creative as the action in Daredevil, but it pulls off the same level of intensity and raw brutality. And it's a hell of a lot better than the action in the other 4 series. Every punch, every shot, every knife stab had a weight to it that made it feel real. And I can say with true conviction that there were times in the series where I didn't think Frank was gonna make it. I mean, he was damn near on his deathbed at the end of almost every episode. This guy gets torn up to shit. The acting in the show is solid across the board, with everyone delivering performances as raw as their characters. I've always liked Jon Bernthal as an actor, ever since his breakout role on The Walking Dead. In fact, he was arguably one of the best actors on that show, who played one of the most fascinating and twisted characters. And whether he's playing a hero or a villain, he always delivers each and every time. And one of the brilliant things that Jon Bernthal pulls off with the character of Frank Castle is he's able to make him come off not only as an arrogant asshole, but also a sympathetic character. And only a truly incredible actor can pull something off like that, which he does. You should take some notes, Finn Jones! I also loved his acting choice of roaring whenever the Punisher would go into beast mode. He'd be like, "Whoa! Oh! Oh!" Funny enough, that's exactly how I would picture the Punisher whenever he's in an intense shootout and he just goes ham on some fools. He's just like yelling and just like, "Yeah! Get some! Get some!" Like a true Marine. Other standout performances includes Ebon Moss-Bachrach. I hope that's how you pronounce his name. If not, apologies, buddy. Your last name is kind of hard to pronounce. As Micro, who just like Bernthal is able to make the character come off as sympathetic despite some of his bizarre, obsessive, and downright creepy behavior, like spying on his family. More on that a little later. And also Amber Rose Riva as Madani. Now, I thought Madani was going to be an insufferable bitch throughout the entire series. And for the first 2 episodes, that's exactly what she was. But Riva was able to work in some charm and personality to make the character likable and somebody that we can root for and understand. Now, the main story, for being a political conspiracy thriller, was actually quite easy to follow, and that's all due to its simple execution. Now, that might sound like a bad thing, But honestly, it's not. It makes it much more accessible for mainstream audiences to become fully enthralled and invested in the story rather than being lost by the political jargon and the overly complicated story arcs. This makes it more streamlined so that the audience is fully invested and understands what's happening. And that's how I felt watching the show. I was invested, I was engaged, I wanted to see where the story was going next, even though I could predict what was going to happen next. But as I tell you all the time, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And the journey is a whole lot of fun. There's excitement, there's thrills, there's comedy, there's drama, there's a lot of great reveals, even though they're all kind of predictable if you really pay attention. But overall, again, it's just a really fun and engaging story. But I will admit that some of the subplots in the series, yeah, we either could have done without them, or they just required a bit more work put into them to make them more effective. And finally, the characters are rich with personality and development. Now, Frank Castle has always been the most fascinating Marvel character to me, because unlike his contemporaries, he's not very heroic. He doesn't fight for truth, justice, and the American way, or at least in the way that like Captain America fights for truth, justice, and the American way. His approach is far more vicious and cruel. He doesn't fight for fame, he doesn't fight for glory, he doesn't fight for recognition, money. He fights for his own cause, for his own sense of justice. And he's one of the few characters in comics that really ride the gray area when it comes to his actions. Some people praise him, other people say he's a villain, he's a scum, he's no better than every person that he kills. And that's what's so fascinating about the character. There's a lot of layers to him. There's a lot of complexities to this character. And he doesn't just fit into one simple category. He has multiple categories that he fits into. And though I find myself at odds with his methods from time to time, I quite respect his character and his conviction. His skewed sense of justice can be understood. Not forgiven or validated, understood. As he is quite a damaged character, both physically, with the scars, wounds, and injuries that he gets on an almost daily basis, and mentally, with his psychotic outbursts and the trauma that he dealt with witnessing his family being killed right in front of him. And this also applies to the many challenges that he faces throughout the series, as he gets into physical altercations, whether they be gunfights or fistfights, and his ideologies and methods do come under scrutiny and questioning. His methods are challenged. He may seem like a mindless, unrelenting beast most of the time, but deep down there is still some humanity left in Frank Castle. And by the way, he is much smarter and clever than I gave him credit for. I mean, some of the things he pulls off in this show, wow. That took a lot of careful planning and strategic maneuvering and understanding one's enemy. I mean, damn, I did not expect that from Frank Castle. I honestly thought that he was just a guy that would run into a situation and start shooting fools up. But no, he strategized, he plans ahead, and he catches his enemies off guard. And that takes some real intelligence right there. So hats off, Frank Castle, for surprising me with your brilliance. His partner Micro isn't half bad either. As I mentioned before, although the character does have his creepy moments here and there, the character is so well written and developed that you understand his motivations. You know that his actions come from a place of love. He spies on his family not only because he's concerned for their safety, which he's right to be, but also because he misses them terribly. He's been gone from them for a whole year. He hasn't had any interactions with them whatsoever, and the only interactions that he gets is through these cameras. He gets to look into their lives without him, which really tears him up inside. Despite all his human flaws, and he does have many, he's still a great husband and father. Sure, he could have approached it in a different way, but given his situation, he did the best that he could. And his little relationship, or I should say bromance with Frank Castle was excellent. It was such a treat to watch. It starts off very rocky, confrontational, as most good friendships do, but as the series progresses, they start to respect one another to the point where they have each other's back. I love the dialogue scenes between them. In fact, they have some of the best dialogue scenes in the entire series. And they make for one effective duo. In fact, they might just be the best duo in any of the Marvel Netflix series as of yet. And finally, a majority of the supporting cast were great as well. Leagues better than the ones in Iron Fist. One, I actually liked them. Two, they weren't useless, pointless, and annoying. And three, they were actually given some proper development. Hell, I know and care more about Madani than, shit, what was the name of that girl? The one that was best friends with Danny when they were kids. What the fuck was her name? Shit, I really don't care. Point is, I really enjoyed this supporting cast. But unfortunately, guys, I do have a couple issues with The Punisher. The editing is very inconsistent throughout this series. Sometimes it's pretty good, other times it's jarring and choppy as shit. There's just no fluidity or consistency from cut to cut. And it doesn't matter if it's an action scene, which is where the editing is at its worst, or a dialogue scene, the editing is pretty awful. I remember there was this one dialogue scene between two characters, and the way that they would cut between the characters was just so jarring, and it just didn't have the right pacing or timing from cut to cut. They would just be constantly cutting. Another major issue deals with the various subplots throughout the series. Now, some of them were pretty okay, they were adequate, while others, not so much. They either needed more time to be fully developed and fleshed out so that they can reach their potential and be something great, or they needed to be removed entirely. The one that I felt like had loads of potential but never quite reached it was the whole subplot dealing with Micro's family and Frank Castle's interactions with them. This could have been something interesting. It could have been something great on a dramatic and emotional level, but again, they just never reached that mark, and they just fell into many of those cliche traps that a subplot like this would fall into. You know, the wife starts getting closer with Frank, and the kids are having problems. In fact, one of the best things about this subplot that I wish they could have focused a bit more on is the fact that Micro's son, dealing with his father's death, has now become a bully. And I thought that is a very fascinating direction to take, and I haven't seen something like that in a show before. So actually seeing a kid transforming himself into a bully or becoming a bully and seeing how Frank Castle deals with this, I thought would have been pretty interesting to see how they're going to pull it off. And it gets resolved in like 5 minutes, and the kid decides not to be a bully anymore, and I'm like, damn. You missed a great opportunity to make that its very own character, or maybe even a character study on the effects of losing a father figure, losing a parent. I thought that was the direction that they were going, but no, you know, Frank has one conversation with them and threatens the kid, and then now all of a sudden now he's buddy-buddy with that kid and they're playing football in the street. I'm like, if some guy, some random dude I'd never met before held a knife to my throat, I'd be shitting my pants. I would never want to touch that guy. I would never want to be near that guy ever again. I'd tell my mom, you keep that crazy man out of this house. But the one subplot that I personally thought could have been removed entirely was the one that focused on the ex-Marine character Lewis. Now, I will admit that there are some good merits to his subplot, and had it been properly executed, it could have worked. It could have been a great character study about a soldier returning home from war but still having the soldier mindset and snapping under the pressures of mundane life as an American citizen. But it wasn't. It was just completely lackluster, and it felt like padding to make the series reach 13 episodes. His little 2-episode stint doesn't really have a major impact on the main story as a whole. In fact, it's never really addressed after it comes to its conclusion. No one even remembers it anymore. So what was the point of even having it in there? Now, you can make the excuse that it was the catalyst to bring Frank Castle, aka the Punisher, back into the public eye, but they could have done that in a series of more interesting ways instead of using this unnecessary subplot to bring him back into the fold. And the way that they conclude this subplot was absolutely abysmal. Nothing was gained, Nothing was learned, nothing truly changed. It just feels like a huge waste of time. Like, why did we spend all of this time following this character and it all led to, honestly, nothing? Like, what was the point? And it has no real effect on the main story or on the audience. You leave this subplot saying, well, who cares? I mean, I never really cared much for this character to begin with, and the way that they ended it, I'm like, okay, well, that's over, I guess. Let's move on then. So what was the point of even putting it in there if there's no real impact on the story or the audience? Nothing at all. Not to mention that they leave so many things unresolved. The biggest one being, what happened to the father? How does he feel about what happened, what transpired in the middle of the series? They never reach out to him. We never see that character again after that whole subplot is concluded. So where was the real impact? And the last issue I found with the Punisher were the villains. Now, I'm not going to go so far to say that they were god-awful or terrible. The problem that I had with them is that their motivations were very cliche, and they're just a complete rehash from Daredevil Season 2. They're the exact same type of villains that the Punisher faced in Daredevil Season 2. And I hate how obvious they were, especially because they were supposed to be a big reveal, like, oh my god, that's the true villain, and I was like, I called that right after this character showed up. The minute this character showed up, I'm like, that's the villain. That's gonna be the surprise villain. And sure enough, they were the surprise villain. Although I'll give them this. At least they weren't the Hand. At least they decided to go a different route and give us some new villains instead of rehashing the Hand again. Oh, guess what? The Punisher's fighting the Hand, guys. I'm thankful for that at least. But overall, despite its many flaws, I still had one hell of a time watching The Punisher. It's fun, exciting, and entertaining, and it's slowly becoming one of my favorite Marvel Netflix series, and I do think that it is worth watching. Go check it out. But as always, guys, I'm not the end-all be-all opinion when it comes to The Punisher. I would love to know what you guys thought of the series as well. Do you love it to death? Is it one of your favorite Marvel Netflix series? Or if I really boring, dull, and you couldn't get into it? And do let me know, who is your favorite anti-hero or vigilante in a comic book series, TV show, or movie? Comment below, let me know, and stay tuned, more videos are on their way. And for those of you who are fans of mine who live on Guam, remember this Saturday, December 9th, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., I will be at HeroCon hosting a trivia game and meeting any fan that wants to come my way and say hello. It's going to be a fun event, and I hope to see you all there. And I also want to take this time to thank all the people who have donated to my Patreon account. It's through your support that videos like this still happen. And if you would like to support my channel, guys, please consider donating to my Patreon account. There's a link in the description. But as always, guys, if you'd like to see more videos on this channel, be a part of the Black Critic Crew, please hit that subscribe button below. Like this video if you really enjoyed it. And I'm Tony Watt II, the vigilante seeking justice as the Black Critic Guy. Till then, peace, YouTube!